DIY Clubbers. I want to come to you with a quick Easter DIY. We're going to start off by making a regular box cake mix. You want to make sure that you oil and flour your pan, and then make sure that you do this part over the trash so that it catches any flour that falls. Then we're going to just put together our cake mix. So we're going to use our box cake mix, oil, water, and 3 eggs. And I just followed the instructions on the back of the cake box. Really, really simple. Going ahead and gathering all the ingredients. Then we're going to put everything into our bowl and use our mixer. If you don't have a mixer, of course you can hand mix. But if you do have your mixer, you just want to use the medium speed to make sure all of the ingredients are fully combined. Then pour your batter into your prepared baking pan. And once it is done, make sure that you use a toothpick or a skewer like I'm using to check and make sure the cake is fully done. You want to poke it in several different spots just to make sure there's no raw dough, and your toothpick should come out completely clean like this one. Then you're going to set your cake onto the counter on a cooling rack and allow the cake to fully cool. I did remove the cake from the pan and place just on the cooling rack to make sure it was completely cooled down. Then I'm going to put the entire cake in a bowl, and using my hands, and of course I put on gloves because I didn't want to get my hands very messy, but I crumbled the cake completely. And even though it had a couple of brown spots on the top of the cake, I went ahead and just completely crumbled everything. And then I just put in a couple of tablespoons of the cream cheese frosting, and then all you do is mix. You're going to keep mixing and mixing and mixing until the frosting and the cake is completely combined, and then you'll begin to roll your cake pops. And you just grab a little bit of the mixture and roll between your hands, and make sure that they're pretty uniform, but any icing covers up any flaws or defects that you might see on the cake pops. Now, I got through about my first row and realized that they were kind of big. So here you'll see me going back through and making them a little bit smaller, because I just didn't want them to be too heavy for the stick that I'm going to be putting in them. And so here you see me just forming all of my little cake pops, making sure they're pretty uniform in size. That way they stay consistent. Now for my sticks, I'm going to be using these paper straws that I got from the Dollar Tree, and it came 20 in a pack. I did end up cutting them in half just because they were quite long and I didn't really want to have them on a very, very long stick. So these are the candy melts that I'm using. I set my straws to the side, and you'll see me cut them in the next clip. And I just added a few of the white chocolate melts to a little plastic cup. And this is what I'm going to use to melt this chocolate in. Now, when you get ready to melt your chocolate, you're going to just do 30-second intervals and make sure that you stir after each interval. Stirring is what really makes it get combined and get loose. So please make sure that you stir, and your consistency should look something like this. Very smooth and creamy with no lumps at all. So here's where I started to dip one of my straws, and I realized this is actually quite long. So I'm going to cut them in half. Now, at first, I was going to just try to use a ruler to make sure that they were even. But then I realized I'm going to be working with kids, and they are not really going to care. So here you see me just cutting some in half, and then I'm going to dip the end of the straw that I cut into the melted chocolate, and then place the stick into the cake pop. This is what is helping to keep the stick in the cake pop when you get ready to dip them and cover them in chocolate. Now, once you complete this process and add all of your sticks To your cake pops, you're going to want to put them in the freezer. I would say anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. You don't want them to freeze, but you do want them really firm. Now for the fun part, the decorating. I pretty much gave the girls free range over decorating these. And the first couple of few cake pops did not come out. As you can see, they crumbled. So a few of the tips that I learned, if the chocolate does not get smooth enough, add just a little bit of coconut oil to the candy melts, and that will smoothen out the chocolate. Also, use a fork or a spoon underneath the cake pops when you are dipping them to stabilize them, and that will help also keep them on their sticks. But let the kids have fun, let them take their time, and let their creativity run wild. And here are the completed cake pops decorated by my nieces. They had so much fun with this DIY. They really enjoyed getting messy with the chocolate and just having free range to create and add whatever they wanted to these cake pops. And this was a great bonding experience, so I suggest you definitely try it. And if you guys are like us and you have a lot of leftover melted chocolate, just put down a piece of parchment paper and allow them to create their own free range chocolate melt shapes. And I let them use whatever we used for decorating, and as you can see, they had a blast just kind of creating and doing their own thing.